Commission meeting for October is called to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie, let the record reflect everyone is here except Mr. Kurtai and Kevin. Okay, first item of business is the approval of the August 27th regular meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections? Jackie, on the bottom of page 1, last paragraph, the word there is incorrect. And the same thing at the last paragraph on the bottom of page 2. THERE.
I was having a thing for there.
Okay. Hearing no other changes, we have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And second,
I'll second it. Mike.
all in favor indicate by saying, motion by Peter, Michael is the second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. First item of business, Residential Plan of Lot, simple subdivision. Someone here to speak about this?
Matthew Schmidt from Matthew Technical Associates representing the applicant. This is a plan that was previously approved by the township more than several years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I believe. There was a variance, it's a 2-lot subdivision of approximately 1.37 acres. It's a 2-lot subdivision, there's an existing home on lot 2, with a garage in the back. Lot 1 would be an additional parcel for the construction of a single-family house. The variance, like I said, was approved for lot area because the minimum lot area for this district is an acre. The only conditions on, that I'm aware of that were on the variance were just that it had to be a single-family house and it had to apply for a stormwater management plan when the house was under construction. So the public sewer, public water, it's on Saxon Boulevard, right past 100 acres, right where you, not the 90-degree bend. That's really all I got, unless somebody has any questions.
Dan, over your
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we had an opportunity to look at this simple subdivision, simple subdivision. It was submitted to us on October 10th, 2025. And it involves a subdivision of 2 lots from 1 lot. And everybody should have a copy of my letters. So as far as the variance goes, which corrected, I guess, the minimum lot size, whatever you get, it just submit it to us. I believe that the variance was there, and obviously you've listed it on your plan, so that's really all I needed at this particular point, just to kind of complete my file. I see where you've already modified the 50-foot right-of-way line. As far as updating the utility chart, you've already taken care of that. You put on the 50-foot stream buffer. And just for the owners of the property, the 50-foot buffer is put on there only when there's no documentation as to where the top of the stream bank is and things of that nature. If you need to encroach upon that at some later date, just talk to your engineer or DEP and they'll help you out with getting into that 50-foot area. So even though that it's shown on there, it's not hard and fast, okay?
Okay. We did look at that. I don't think we're gonna be approaching on it in this case, but we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's great. The recording covenants, obviously, you've told us that there's no mortgage involved, so that covenant is not required. As far as any third-party approvals, you'll take care of those when they are required. And then finally, you altered the location of the HOP note. And then finally, in the comment section would be to provide us with a digital copy of the plan in AutoCAD format. And then finally, document if the prior subdivision plan, GIA Realty plan, was ever recorded. It was not. Interesting. So based on the foregoing, the developer's engineer has made the majority of these comments, all to our satisfaction. Based on the foregoing, we would recommend approval of the subdivision plan contingent upon our engineer's letter dated October 20th, 2025.
Any questions from the planning commission members?
I have a question about that variance again. That was done back in 2010?
I believe so.
Okay,
About 2011.
okay. All right, and they're gonna also submit that with their findings as well? Yes.
Questions? Motion to approve this based on the engineer's letter.
I based on getting the engineer's requests and also the variance.
Second on the motion. Okay. Motion by Michael, second by Preston. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We should have been extra hard on you folks.
We'll send you other copies later, but that's just a copy.
Why you guys leaving now?
Thanks, Brian.
It's so good to be here.
See you guys.
Okay, next item is discussion regarding possible reclassification of Foxwood Trails parcel to formal zoning designation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the planning commissioners, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to review it this evening before you came in, it was a bit of a late email. But it's somewhat of a unique situation, at least in my experience, when you have a PRD that had been previously approved as this one had. It was given final approval back in June of 2020. If the development does not occur within a 5-year period after that final approval, no development is, under the MPC, no development can take place on that parcel until, the terminology they use in the MPC is called reclassification. What it essentially means is that the Board of Supervisors needs to revise the zoning map back to its prior zoning designation before any development can occur. So this used to be an MDR property. Upon final approval back in 2020, the zoning map literally changed for these two, I think it's 2 parcels, from MDR to PRD. And that PRD sort of, it has its own set of zoning requirements. However it was approved, that replaces the underlying zoning. And so, because that 5-year period is expired, before any development can occur, the board needs to reclassify that or change the zoning map back to MDR. And the way that works is like any other zoning ordinance amendment or zoning map amendment, which is a motion for a public hearing by the Board of Supervisors. There's a review period that's required by the county planning and by this planning commission, and ultimately a public hearing and a vote to amend the zoning map. Once that zoning map is amended, because PRDs are still permitted use in the MDR district, this application could be heard and potentially approved at that time. So one of the things we have to work on with the applicant here is the timing of when the board's actually gonna be able to hear this, have the public hearing on the tentative approval application that Mr. Lucci is here in front of you for this evening. So we're gonna need to work on an extension because we're not going to be able to have the hearing until the zoning map is amended. And the way I see this playing out, because of the timing here at the end of the year, you know, the board, assuming that this board, frankly, whether this board does or does not recommend a reclassification process to start, our recommendation from the solicitor's chair to the Board of Supervisors is, hey, this needs to happen because no development can ever occur here until you change the zoning map. So if it follows its normal course at the November Board of Supervisors meeting, the board will make a motion to schedule a public hearing on that zoning map amendment to change it back to MDR. And because of the review periods, that public hearing no action can take place on that amendment for 45 days after it's submitted to the county. So because there's an so obviously we lose December because that's not enough time for the review period. That gets us into January. In January, I believe that the supervisors only meet one time, and I think that's on January 5th, which is the first Monday. I don't know if, as part of that organization meeting, they're going to want to have a hearing. I think the timing would work from the 45 days, but I don't know if they're gonna be ready to schedule a hearing at that meeting or at the February meeting of the Board of Supervisors. So I think what's been discussed is, I know there's been a submission by the applicant, it's been initially reviewed by the township engineer. I think we can run these somewhat concurrently from an efficiency standpoint to try to save everybody some headache, but in my opinion, I don't think that we can have a hearing on the application for tentative approval until the map is officially changed. So, Mr. Lucci, we're gonna need to work with you and your client on an extension that's gonna time up so that, you know, it allows that zoning map amendment process to occur before we actually do this forward. I'm hoping, since it's been out there for quite a while now, another month or two is not gonna, you know, be a huge problem for you folks. But I wanna do this the right way so that, you know, if there is a potential challenge to it, the township's good, you and your client are good. And I don't know, obviously don't know what the Board of Supervisors is gonna do with the actual, you know, application itself, but I don't wanna get hung up on a technicality. So, with that said, I don't know if there are any questions from the planning commissioners, I'm happy to address those.
So basically, if the board of supervisors decides they don't want to change it back to zoning map back to MDR, then this whole thing's an exercise of futility.
It is, but it's hard to imagine that would be the case, because even if they don't think this is a great development, they're not gonna wanna, you know, make it essentially a valueless piece of property. And I don't wanna get into the potential legal challenges that could arise if they wouldn't reclassify it. So I think that's more an academic, you know, question more than anything else.
So Gavin, I just wanted to understand, so right now it's PRD, and if supervisors do not want to change it back to MDR, will it just stay as a PRD?
I mean, technically, yes, but like I said, that's the path I didn't wanna go too far down, because I just don't see that being likely in
I
any way.
understand,
Yeah.
understand, just, yeah, okay.
It's just that this is a necessary step to take, just to get us back to the sort of status quo, and then we can move forward. But with that said, I know that Mr. Witch is here, ready to present initially. I know Mr. Slagle's done that review, so I think it's okay if the planning commission is willing to hear it, that at least you get an initial crack at it. I expect it will be tabled. You know, there's gonna be some outstanding items, not as good as Mr. Lucci is. There's usually like one or two things that require a second round here, so, I think, you know, it might be, again, for the sake of efficiency, good to hear this round, and kind of have an initial review of the planning commission.
So what we need to do tonight then, the first thing we need to make a motion to recommend to the board of supervisors that we change this zoning on this parcel back to MDR.
I think that'd be an appropriate motion for this board to make right now, this.
Preston made a motion, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Preston, second by Peter. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Great.
Now, we move on to Oxford Trail.
Yes, again, my name is David Lucci, I'm from Victor Wetzel Associates. I have Rich Miller here as the developer, for this property, so I understand, I'm glad Gavin was here and telling us all the legality stuff of it. I knew that we were going to want to present this to you. We did get, Mr. Slagle's, comment letter, here, so we know we were gonna have to be tabled, in advance because of his comments, you know, that we got yesterday. But we wanted to go through the presentation to show you what we were proposing on this development. So let's go ahead, cover sheet. This is the zoning map, and in the blue area here is where the property's at. It's at the easterly side of Townsend, Indiana. Load up here, and again, where the crosshatched area is the property in question here. It's the site. We are in the MDR zoning district. It's 58.7 acres, and townhouses are a permitted use in this MDR zoning district. The blue line represents Little Deer Creek Valley Road, which we have frontage on. These are the elevations that Mr. Miller would like to construct here. He's a developer and a builder, so we do have patio homes up top here. They range from 24 by 50 to 31 feet wide by 50. And then we have the townhomes here, and they are scaled at 24 feet wide by 36 feet deep. And they will be the builders for their development. So here is the original site plan that we presented to the township. And the total property is 58.6 acres. We were only doing a portion of the property. The rest will be reserved for future development, excluded from the Foxwood PRD development. So this area is what we're only questioning on, and it's 16 acres in size that we were showing. So we would come up with one proposed street, Foxwood Drive, and then we would have two smaller streets that were private, that would be maintained by the HOA, and they would terminate at both ends. Again, the brown represent the Wexfords, and the beige represents the patio homes. Again, we would have a proposed street that would end into a cul-de-sac, and then there would be a potential future development that Mr. Miller has no plans on, but we showed this in the prior development that we got, that was approved, so we wanted to maintain that right away. But at this point, there is no future plans for anything. So this is the only PRD that we're looking at this point.
What's the density?
We are, right now, this is let me proceed here, I can go and answer maybe your question. So, we did get, again, Nichols and Slagle's engineering comment letter, and the PRD zoning ordinance changed just recently, 2025. So, one of the requirements is to have it to be 20 acres is the minimum requirement for a PRD. So we had to increase this property from 16 to 20 acres. So we just extended our property so far to the right here, got 20 acres. So our density, so we have a total of 40 units, and our density, it was a 20-acre site, so it's basically 2 dwelling units per acre. And you go up as much as 4 units per acre in this development. So we're well with under the maximum density. So again, that's the only thing we did on this change of plan is we just shifted to the right here to gain our 20 acres. Here's our grading plan, showing you, we have one detention facility, stormwater management facility number 1, that would be collecting the water and discharging it back into the existing stream channel that's located along Little Deer Creek Valley Road. We have our sanitary sewer located, existing sanitary sewer tie-in that we would have in this location here, that we can be able to sewer all the townhomes. The total disturbance on this is 8.12 acres of disturbance, and I believe the open space here is about 62% open space. The area in green is what we consider to be open space. So we have more than plenty for the open space requirement, and we're disturbing very, not that much, less than 40% for land disturbance on this property. So let's go to the next slide, slopes plan. I did the entire property of the 58.7 acres just to show you the slopes. 0 to 25 would be white, the yellow represents the 25 to 40, and the orange represents the 40% and greater. Next slide showing you that we're going to have to ask for a modification. The ordinance, it says no development of disturbance shall be allowed exceeding 40%. There are greater slopes that are located within a future right-of-way of the existing drainage, where the existing drainage channel is. But we're not impacting that area at all, but we are impacting the slopes at where Little Deer Creek Valley Road is located. How you get into the property is where we're disturbing. And this slide showing you that slopes plan. This is our 20-acre site. And again, the yellow represents the 25 to 40, orange represents the 40% greater, and this purple area that I'm showing you is how we're, with our proposed driveway, we are impacting that area. And I believe it's like 6% of the 25, or excuse me, the 40% and greater we are disturbing. So it's only 6% of.
Dave, what section is that?
Uh,
I said it.
Section, and again, this might have changed from the PRD, but again, section 126802
126802, what?
B.
So you're looking at the old Saldo.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
the new
I-
Saldo has eliminated it for us. So
Yes.
there is no modification required.
Is there a requirement for, if you're disturbing, I think there was, the new ordinance that not well versed at this
That's
point?
okay.
But is it 50% greater than you have to ask for it?
So in looking at the old Saldo, when we were updating it as the township, there are all these slope requirements that you adequately addressed here. But we've come to the conclusion that in all of the developments, we have 2-to-1 slopes all over the place. So what's a 2-to-1 slope at 50%? So, we're allowing 50% slopes, under the guidance of a geotech. So the question is, why segment out steep slopes greater than 40% when we allow them 50% all over?
Okay.
So what we did was to eliminate that particular clause and inserted that a geotech would prepare a geotechnical plan as to how he would design the slope configuration that you're currently requesting. And then the slope, the cuts and fills would be constructed under the jurisdiction of the geotech and his inspector on site. And we figured that since we allow 50% slopes anyways, you know, why go through a modification?
Okay.
So a modification would not be required.
That's good. And this, and plus, we do have a geotechnical report that was prepared for this development, so we can probably have that, and we'll probably have to, remove that modification.
Well, that was the concept too, is that when the supervisors gave us this task, the planning commission this task, we were faced with numerous PRDs, of which you were involved with a lot of them.
Yeah.
That we need a modification for this, we need a modification for this, and the supervisors basically said, well, why should we have an ordinance when all we're doing is asking for modifications? So we tailored the new Saldo as well as the new PRD in such a fashion that, I would say that it's more workable, is the best way I can describe it.
It was really, it's 500.02D is the new provision, 500.02 sub, little d.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's, proceed here then, just wanted to go through, this is our landscape plan that we were proposing. Again, we were doing, street trees, one tree every 50 feet along the proposed public street. And we were doing ornamental trees in front of every townhome. And then where there was gaps, we were providing a larger tree. We also were providing a buffer yard along our, northerly, entrance, 'cause north is to the left. And then we do have a buffer yard for the rear of these, patio homes from the detention facility. That's what's shown in this location. So, we're just looking at the new ordinance here, and one of the comments that we got from, the township engineer review was about, the PRD, a PRD has to front off of a public street. The Little Deer Creek Valley Road is a public street, so that's where we have our connection. So we do have private streets that we're proposing, in this development now. And if that needs to require a modification, we might have to ask for that modification. Dan, I don't know what, you know.
So, one of the, I guess, criteria that we have in the SALDO is that, private streets would only be allowed if you have five or five or less lots, or not six or more. So you have a case where you have more than 6 or more lots on a private street. And one of the questions that we have, and we'll get here to in a minute, but normally what happens in a townhouse configuration is that once you've completed the development, that you come back to the township and you re-subdivide along all the party walls. So the question we had for you and the applicant, is your intention to own all of the townhouses under one common ownership? Or are you gonna be coming back and re-subdividing and selling them individually?
These are all proposed to be for sale units.
That's what I kind of figured.
Right.
So in doing so, we now run into a situation where it's no longer one lot, one big house on a private street, which is okay with us. But now we're gonna have 40 lots on a private street. So the modification that you would want to ask, well, let's back up. So in the design that's always been there, a private street is built to public road standards. In other words, 24 feet wide, the asphalt thickness, the subgrade, with the exception that a private street doesn't have to be paved. You can make it all gravel if you want to. In your case, obviously, you're gonna make it asphalt. So it has to be constructed all to public road standards. The only thing that yours is not included, well, actually, to make it up to public road, you still need a cul-de-sac at the end. So you're making it the public road standard, so why not just dedicate it to the township, I guess is the thought. Now, you can ask for a modification and go the route of making it a private street, which just means we have less than snowplow.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
and-
you could put a cul-de-sac at each end, and we snowplow. And we maintain it, and we'll pave it and take care of it forever. So
Should be considered.
it's something for you guys to
Yeah.
think about. Since you're going to that expense to make it up the public road, pretty much the standard anyways.
We'll take it under consideration.
Think about it.
Can
Makes sense.
Can I just ask about, you were talking about looking at it as a subdivision ordinance. Aren't we in a PRD, so PRD would be in the zoning, so some things are left to be under the PRD and not in the zone, in the subdivision, sell them,
Yeah.
okay.
So, I mean, you could ask for a modification with no cul-de-sacs, in which case, the HOA would own, maintain it forever, or put a cul-de-sac each end, and we snowplow and maintain it. I mean, snowplowing is a pretty hefty little expense nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about,
We will,
Sure.
we'll look at that.
but I just wanted to air it out.
So I do have some just, I went through the first 2 pages, because I think the first 2 pages of the engineer's comment letter is what pertains to this PRD. The other things, I believe, were more or less final plans too, and I would like to just go through and just, some of them here, the first 2 pages, I guess. The first comment was, that we didn't have enough acres, we had 16 wide. We showed that we increased it to 20 acres. I believe we meet that ordinance. Allowed on the PRD, with this MDR, you can go up to 4 dwelling units per acre. We're proposing 2 dwelling units per acre. Regarding, parking spaces, each unit will have a 2-car garage and will have a driveway that can fit 2 cars. Second page, but I believe we do meet the ordinance on that.
You do.
You
he's referring to the spacing between the units. of-
Correct, the
being-
20 feet, yeah, spacing, thank you.
Right, so that used to be 25,
Yeah.
and the new PRD orders, would you like me to go through it?
No, I can see it right now, I have it here. Letter H is about the access to the PRD. Again, Little Deer Creek Valley Road is a public street. We talked about Silver Links Court and Badger Court are to be public. We'd like to maintain them as private, but we're gonna take a look at providing a cul-de-sac if we can. I just don't know if how flat it has to be and how large it has to be if we haven't done it before. Letter I, no structure shall exceed 30 feet in height. We will meet that ordinance. There's not gonna be any housing that are over 55 feet in height. Provide survey data, all parcel boundaries and parcels identified with parcels on the plans. We will provide that. We just know that we're gonna have a 20-acre development.
So, before you leave that one,
Sure.
because normally we do a little bit of reverses, but that's okay. If you could go back a couple screens,
Yeah.
I guess to, I can,
Okay, we go to the site plan?
one more,
Ready?
one more. I still don't see it.
That's
But
the- yeah.
go to the existing site plan.
The original site plan?
Okay, it still doesn't have it. So in your plans, along Little Deer Creek Road, there's a section of property. And it was tax map data.
Oh, the original?
So,
Yeah.
do you own that piece that's along?
This little piece right here, that is like a little,
Yeah, that piece right there.
you own that property, you own both pieces of property.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that you own it, and then that there, because you're showing it as one big piece, but currently it's two pieces.
yeah, that one.
Okay, so as part of this process, a subdivision plan or consolidation plan
Consolidation plan.
would be required. So the question I had was whether you control both pieces. Okay, that was the question.
Sorry?
And backing up to Liberations a little bit, if you ever plan to do anything with the rest of that parcel, build on that, you definitely wanna have that be a public street coming in.
Correct. We were proposing this to be public.
Not street.
This road was gonna be a public street.
That's gonna be public?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry if I jumped over that.
That's all right.
Let me keep on going here, then, okay, then under section 404, application or review procedures, again, provide a survey, okay, we talked about that, about 20 acres in one phase, and we'll have to do a
Well,
lot.
let's back up to number 8.
consolidation.
Give me letters from the utilities saying that they can furnish.
Yeah,
And I know you have them from before.
we had it before.
But just give it to update them.
Update them, okay, sure.
Yep.
The next one is get a letter from the fire marshal regarding the adequacy of fire protection. And I don't know where your fire hydrants are going, but I'm sure they'll give you a letter for that. You wanna,
Go, number 11, we do have the HOA documents, I think you just forward those to us, that, I think your brother maybe, forward those to us.
Yes.
So we can provide those, that's the HO documents and the covenants. That, we'll provide number 11. Provide location of parking, number 12, provide location of parking, school bus activities, and mailbox cluster units. We do provide our CBUs that would be located where our parking, area is, on both areas here.
so what we've been standardizing on is that the school system, we're putting a pool out where they could have whatever, 7 or 8 parked cars for the kids. So if you could coordinate with the school system to see if in fact they want one at the entrance like we've been doing lately, or whether they would allow one later on in the development. But we need some type of area that, and you can commingle that with the mailbox clusters. Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing that we're getting stuck with, is that the US Postal Service no longer likes to go door to door anymore. And they like to go to just one drop area. So in order to accommodate that, we'd be using, in your system, we would expect maybe about 7, like parking lanes, 20 foot there, someplace in the system. You have 1 or 2 clusters,
We have two clusters. We have one in this location and one over here.
maybe 5 spaces each, something like that, just
Yeah,
to,
I think we had 7 spaces total, so.
okay, we could, okay.
Sure.
I am not an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing that we have that from Amazon, stuff like that, can we put these mailboxes further in the plan versus not having them near the main?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I am not an engineer.
Yeah, we're providing them in the plan, they'd be here in this private street, this location there where my hand is, and then the other one would be over here. So that would be convenient for whoever lives in these townhomes to walk to this location and pick up their mail or their Amazon packages, if that's where they're, I don't know where they would be at.
So, since you brought up the word walk, is there sidewalks in this town?
Yes.
I just, okay, sorry, it's my eyesight.
Yeah, that would be, you're providing that.
That's good.
Okay, let's keep on going here. Number 14, provide schedule. We'll do that for a project schedule. As Gavin has told us that we're gonna be already into January, I guess, for the reclassification. We're gonna have to, put that into.
But the
our-
question is more aimed at, is there a second phase?
If this is successful, yeah, I would like to do a phase 2.
We would like that too, but, okay, I'm just asking the question because all I see is a single phase at this point.
Right.
Okay.
We didn't wanna get into the
Oh, that's
cost of
okay.
permitting, engineering and whatnot at this
No,
point.
that's okay, yes is a good answer.
It is a good
You're
answer.
proposing, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good.
And the last one, I think, is about the utilities, public utilities. We, last time we got this approved, we did have sewer, we had the electric, we had all of the service availability letters. We'll provide those, to you again.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can go through the other, letters, or we can even have Dan, go through them.
Just go through, so,
Yeah.
so I think what we're looking at with the new PRD is some type of overflow parking area. But what I think your argument there is that, now that you've told us that you've got 2-car garage underneath, and plus, you can tell me how many cars you can park out front, but when you get to the point where if there's 2 in the garage and 2 outside, that might be enough for the board to consider not having like an off-street parking area. You can make that argument. We've already talked about the utilities. You're gonna put together a consolidation plan, and then after the construction of the townhouses are done, you're gonna come back with a re-subdivision plan, subdividing where all the are. As far as the storm and sanitaries, you can provide that under final. Utility letters we already talked about. I need the covenant on the plan someplace about the non-disclaimer regarding environmental issues. The third party permits can come later. Is there lighting?
We would just have, lamp posts,
Just is it gonna be
regular
lamp posts, or
each-
would it be just the lighting on the townhouses themselves? That's something you guys can figure out.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
We can figure it out. I mean, we were thinking that you'd have a lamp post at each of the, sidewalks leading into the house.
Right, at least.
Yeah.
So minimum preserve 25% of the vegetation, which you're doing. We talked about the 50-foot buffer on the streams that you need to show for us. The steep slope, we've already had a discussion on that part of it. That's C and E, that's the rationale behind that. Again, with the public streets, we talked about the public streets, and, you can let us know what you wanna do there. And the other ones, public streets can all be handled under final, PRD approval. Moving on to page 5. tree survey is part of the new style building you'll have to address. The,
Now, in that new, ordinance, and again, we looked at it since we got your comment letter here. If we're disturbing less than, so if we're disturbing 8 acres of the site, and our property's 20 acres in size, so we're less than 50%. So therefore, we wouldn't need to do a tree survey.
You
Is that
would.
correct?
You would, and you'd have to participate in the conservation and environmental fund fee.
Why is that? It says grading more than 50% requires a submission of a tree survey. We're not disturbing more than 50%.
You still have to participate in the conservation fund fee. However you establish that, or however we agree to, however you establish, that is up to us.
What did you call that again?
Conservation and environmental fund fee. What the township has done by that is, major developers come in, mostly houses, single-family housing developments, and when they do, you have a 50-foot right-of-way for the road, you have a 40-foot wide setback on each side, you have 40 feet for each one of the houses, and then you have a backyard part of it. And when you take a look at that swath that goes through an area, you've taken basically the width of a football field and completely annihilated every single tree that's in the place. The second thing that happens in developments is there's total mass grading of the plan in order to get all these building lots and things in the station. And as a result, the township is lacking trees. So in order to compensate for that and to encourage the developer to keep as many trees as possible, we established a conservation fund. So you cut down trees. So the old ordinance was for every tree that you cut down, you planted 3 back. Now you can imagine, I'm not sure how that equation ever worked. I wasn't the one that established it. But if you, let's say you cut down let's say 1,000 trees, you're planting 3,000 trees back. Where do your buildings go? Where does your streets go? Where does the stormwater? It's almost impossible to plant 3,000 trees back. So what we've done is by establishing this fee, we're permitting the developer basically to go in there and completely regrade the site. You're required to plant 1 tree in the front yard, 2 in the back. It's the only tree planting or reforestation that we require back. The money goes into a fund fee. We use that money to go plant trees in our parks. And, you know, if you come back and say, hey, I want an extra tree in my front yard, you got it. So we're reforestating, not necessarily in your plan, but all over the place.
I mean, in the past things that we've done in Indiana Township, we also did slope reforestation, and that's what this is showing here as crosshatching. We tried to provide that as like 1-inch caliper or like whips, they call them, plantings. So we had, on this plan, we had probably around 1,152 whip plantings. To try to reforestate that.
That's not wrong. You want to tell the planning commission what a whip is?
Whip is a small caliper planting that is, you know, it's like 1 inch or less that you're able to plant on hillsides. The survivability is better to have a smaller size tree.
When you say
than
small
it has-
caliber,
Yes.
you want to describe what you put in at Richmond Estates.
Well, they were probably 1 inch, and they might have been were they saplings? I can't.
I'm gonna tell you that they were less than the diameter of a pencil,
Okay.
and they may have been 12 inches tall, maybe.
I tell you, but you look and see what has happened to the hillsides of Richmond, and I believe they have been revegetated with some of those, if not most of those.
Yeah, so,
plantings.
anyways, but needless to say, that's
Yeah.
gone from the ordinance.
Okay, well,
But what happens too is that when you start looking at the cost of a 1-inch diameter tree, if we went that route, you're looking probably about $80 a tree. Take 80 times your 1,000 trees that he's planting, if we went that route. Now whip, I would agree, is probably $5 a tree maybe.
Less than that.
Yeah, it's like $2 a tree, but when you start talking a 1-inch diameter tree, you take that times 1,000, Yeah, it's
Hey, but again, the survivability of a smaller tree is better than putting a 3-inch caliper tree on a hillside. That's all.
Okay.
You know? So, but keep going, please.
So, sure, so moving on page 5, let's start with, where we at?
Protection tree.
Yeah, so this all has to do with the conservation fund fee, which is number H on that list there. And then we'll obviously want you to document any large diameter trees that you're taking down. We've already talked about the sewer design coming in under the final plan. As far as the fire hydrant locations, again, that would be something for you, the water authority, the fire marshal, that can be handled under final, plan approval. The easements, speak for themselves. The sidewalks, you already indicated you're putting them in, they just have to meet with the ADA, act. The, recreation fee of $825 per dwelling unit. There'd be a traffic impact fee of $1,845 per unit. The stormwater management, special purpose stormwater management fund fee of $16,000 per basin. Any dirt that's taken off the site would require a roadway bond. I'm sure this will be looked at by the Allegheny County Department of Economic Development. And then finally, you enter into a developer's agreement and post the required bonds. So, that's pretty much it is in a nutshell. But if you would, Dave, take a look at the new Saldo ordinance, and obviously you've got your hands on the new Peters ordinance.
Any questions?
So before the board, I guess, oh, I'm sorry, questions, you're right.
Does anybody else want to take questions?
The entrance road, what's the degree, slope degree?
We have, I think it's like 5 or 6% as going up here, but we do have some steepness to it. But our cul-de-sac is up to 8%, but I know our cul-de-sac is at 5%. So we do meet the township requirements.
I want to mention this so far, but on your project narrative, last time I checked in the townships in Allegheny County, nothing.
Oh. We will fix that. That was a
You must be
typo.
going for the lower taxes.
Jackie must have, put that as, sometimes computers are great, but, sometimes you use the same narrative as like a template, and then you change things. You might have-
Okay, what do we need? We need to table this?
Well, before you take action on that, Gavin, do you wanna talk about the request to make sure that extension is granted by the developer?
We can, but I think at this point, we're unclear as to how far out we need that extension. I would suggest the February Board of Supervisors meeting, and we do have a form for you here to sign. I know you're probably gonna talk to your client about this, but, I think to play it safe, I think the February Supervisors meeting is
So
probably.
timing wise, if the board acted on tabling the plan, we would still be in the timing without the extension at this point. We still have another meeting.
No, because I don't know, what was the filing date for this application? Do you have that handy?
I received it on October the 9th.
Yeah. we
October
submitted-
9th.
we submitted this month.
Okay, so we have 60 days to commence the hearing for the supervisors for BRD, so that's pretty tight.
So if the applicant would consider the extension.
We're gonna have to do that, I think we have a choice.
We don't have a choice now.
No, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah, do you want us, he's here, we can sign it?
Sure, that's great. So what's the second Wednesday in
February?
February, right? Who has a phone that can go that?
Yeah, I can.
Trying.
Second
The 11th.
Wednesday's the 11th.
Wednesday, February 11th.
Gavin, I have an extra one if you want.
Here you go, Dave. Do that, make sure I didn't slip any, secret legalese in there. that, Get you to commit 3 lots to me for my purposes.
Well, we could,
Feel free to look that over, we
Yeah.
don't need it right this second.
Well,
but
yeah,
before
we
you
could
leave,
probably,
it'd be great.
we could probably, I don't have a pen, I would pencil.
We have a motion to table this to.
I'll make a motion to table this.
Motion by Peter, we have a second.
I'll second, but,
No, go ahead.
I'll second.
Second by Preston, table Roxbury Trail from PRD. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
So this gives them plenty of time to work things out.
Yeah,
with all
we'll have to
the
work with Dan,
issues,
we're gonna work with Dan.
and we'll see you back in the future.
And can I just add one note to the developer, is that I like what you're doing.
Oh, good, thank you.
I think it would be a positive thing for that section of the township.
I appreciate that, Dan, I like what I'm doing also. I love it, I love it.
Well, it fits into that section of our area, it's gonna provide affordable housing, I
Right.
think, because right now, the housing plans that we're putting up, because of the way the economy is right now, interest rates, supply and demand, things like that, and we're getting a lot of $500,000, $600,000 houses. I think these might be more reasonable, maybe not in the 300s, but at least maybe the low 400s. So I think, like I said, I think it's a nice addition to what the township and I can't speak for the supervisors of the planning commission, but like I said, I like what you're doing.
This is, in the city, they have this thing where a developer would come in, they want to develop something, but they have to have X amount of units that will afford. How does that work? You know, I mean, if they're building something, say there are 20 townhouses, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 of them would have to be affordable town. I forgot what they call it, but it's, well, I think it's crazy, but,
That's the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
They
the
have
city.
completely different rules
Yeah.
and laws and.
I think, Preston, it doesn't work that well as far as how much development in the city.
And that may be, URA money, Urban Redevelopment Authority or something like that.
Okay. I don't have any advisory presentations, new business. Motion to approve sewage facilities planning module.
Yeah, let me.
So this is something new, Mr. Chairman, is that, I think one of my engineers, Liddy, was here at a prior meeting. They kind of gave the board an overview of what the planning module process is about. But let me just add to that by saying that whenever a wastewater treatment facility is hydraulically or organically overloaded, all of a sudden it triggers what's called the planning module process, which in order to allow development into the either, and unfortunately, Alcoasand and Deer Creek are both under consent decree, agreement with DEP. And in order to squeeze additional flow into a plant that's hydraulically overloaded, the planning module process kicks in whereby all the different entities have to sign off on it, from the planning commission, to the supervisors, to the conveyance people, to the collection people, to the treatment system itself. So it's quite an elaborate process to get flows into it. And this evening you have one for the Fredericks Farms process. And I asked Jackie to put it on the agenda because as part of this process, the planning commission has to review this request, and the chairman has to sign off on what's called, I think it's module C, 4A. 4A. Thanks, Jackie. And I just thought, instead of the chairman just blindly doing what I've asked, I thought he might want the support of the planning commission before he signs his life away for us. And that was the purpose for bringing it. And I will, well, let's take care of this first, and then I'll ask you one more thing.
Okay, we've got the planning module in front of us. I think everybody had a chance to see it. It's sent out electronically. Is there any discussion on this?
The box is checked yes, that says, is this proposal consistent? so. Yes, sir.
This falls in that category. Motion to approve you signing this?
I so say. You can sign it right here.
Sounds orient.
Okay, so we got Michael make the motion to approve the search facilities.
Second Michael's motion.
Peter seconds it, and just question, do we have the original, so I can sign it tonight, and not have to stop by and get it?
Yes, I.
That will do.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Now, what I wanted to add is, given what I just said, and this is more of a data question or chairman question than anything else, is this something you would like to see brought back to the planning commission when we get them? Or do you just want to sign them like you used to do it, and the supervisors will help them?
I don't see why it needs to come back here.
Very good. We will take care of it that way.
Sign. I said that, Jackie.
Yes.
Next item, discussion regarding solar energy system zoning amendment. We'll have this for a while, they'll look it over. As I read through it, I thought Gavin, you and Jeff did a very nice job. I don't know how much input you had on this, Dan.
Yeah, Mr. Slagle was definitely involved in those conversations as well, and my colleague Ashley Kuchalski took the initial crack at the draft, because we've done a few of these in various places. It's kind of one of the new hot topics. This and data centers is, if you're looking to go into any kind of continuing education, zoning seminar these days, those are two very hot topics. You know, right now there's obviously no solar, what you call a solar farm in Indiana Township. Different people have different takes on solar farms, and you know, whether they're a good thing, bad thing, or otherwise. I will tell you, I've been involved in some pretty contentious public hearings related to solar farms, especially the larger scale. You know, some people view it as a very passive, kind of non-intrusive use. Other people say that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen, and it's going to, you know, drive down my property values, and you know, this solar thing is just a bunch of hooey. So I'm not allowed to have an opinion anywhere on that spectrum, but I do know that I think it's a good idea for the township to get some regulations in place, because I think it's a matter of a when, not if, that the township is approached by a solar developer. We know there have been some in the area kind of looking at sites. Westier Township just passed their ordinance that looks quite a bit like this. Obviously, different zoning districts, and you know, there are a lot of different opinions on that one as well. But this one, I think the key, you know, Jeff and Dan and I went back and forth quite a bit as to what zoning districts it made sense to allow this sort of activity. Because I don't think you probably don't want it in areas that you're trying to reserve for residential development or more I guess residential development. But you also need big enough parcels so that you're not effectively, you know, prohibiting the use. So I think Dan and Jeff had done an analysis based on the zoning districts as presented. And just to kind of maybe start from the beginning, the key highlights are, number one, the accessory use solar panels, so people who maybe have solar panels on their roofs or a small array for on-site use, those are already throughout the township quite a bit, and those under this ordinance would continue to be permitted in all zoning districts. There'd be some regulations associated with them, but you know, every property owner, as long as you can meet the requirements, could have one of those accessory type solar arrays, if you will.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, because in your definition in section 1, it says primarily. How do you define primarily?
That's I think the common sense is that more than 50% is being used on site. I mean, I think arguably even more than that, but the reason why it says primarily is because as we've learned through learning more about solar than I ever expected to have to learn, I think a lot of folks who have these accessory panels end up selling their excess energy back to the grid. So we had originally drafted these as solely limited to on-site, and we had some people say, wait, like, I think I know what you mean, but does that mean that I can't sell my excess back to the grid, which is what financially, I guess, makes this work?
I guess if you say primarily means more than 50%, we want, is that enough, or do we want to require a higher percentage to be used on site?
I guess you get into enforceability issues there. I mean, are we gonna go out and, audit their electricity? I mean, I think, my take is it's a sort of a common sense interpretation that this is something on your roof, this is something in your backyard that's powering your house, and the excess goes back to the grid.
Well, I consider that also, and I was thinking about if it's an existing structure, we can get what was the average electrical usage, wattage used for the last 2 years. We would then use that, and here's the wattage that, on average, be generated by the solar panels, is then some percentage that we would say is the requirement. Now, if it's new construction, it's a little tougher. But I know the power companies, they define homes as being efficient or not. They try to come up with, somewhere you can come up with a value of wattage per square foot of new construction.
That's getting pretty into the weeds.
Doesn't meet the, usage.
I just think that's
Because
getting.
I could put solar panels up on my house and say, well, it's primarily my usage, and you're selling 3/4 of it, set back to the power company. We gotta have something.
Do we
that
care though?
forces-
I mean, in that case, if you just put them on your roof, do we care whether that power stays on site or if it goes to, I mean, it's not a farm, right? We're trying to make a
Well,
distinction
but
between
you're also
a
allowed-
commercial use.
You're also allowed to be on the ground. I could put it in my backyard.
Well, we limit the size of them though, and there's setbacks and buffering.
Well, yeah, but I could fill the rest of my backyard with solar panels, and we don't want that happening.
Well, I think the way to attack that is not so much with the definition, that if you want to tweak the regulations as to how much ground mounted solar you can do for accessory wise, that would be the way to
We'll
do
get
it.
to that a little later, too.
But I think that's a better way to do it, because I just don't see us auditing people's wattage per square foot.
No, but at least up front, have an estimate, here's what's amount you're gonna generate, here's the amount that's expected to be used.
My recommendation is that is not to go that route.
Throw it out
Yeah,
for
hey, listen,
consideration.
we're just saying, we're having a conversation here, I hear you. Look, I don't get a vote at the end of the day, I just make recommendations, so.
And also on that same page, the disconnected impervious area, just further down page 2.
Yes, got it.
The end of that description says increased time of concentration. What does that mean?
That's a engineering term that I'm gonna let Mr. Slagle explain, but it has to do with, I usually see that in the context of stormwater runoff. Time of concentration, it's, you drop something here and it takes however long to get to another point, right?
Good definition, but what we run into from an engineering standpoint is that when rain falls over a large area, some of it seeps into the ground, and the rest of it disperses evenly over a hillside, right? What we end up doing with plans is through roofs, roadways, and things like that, we consolidate this into what's called a point discharge. And what we do is we measure the impact downstream as a result of these impervious areas consolidating the water to the source where it now has, it can do damage. So the time of concentration is the measure, just what Gavin said, from the place where it starts to that point of concentration.
And the context of that is for the ground mounted solar panels, the way that we measure the impervious surface, there's circumstances when you meet these requirements in the year where you do or do not count the surface area of the ground mounted panel itself as impervious.
Yeah, could I suggest go through your page by page, and make any points that you want to highlight, and then if any of us have any comments back, we can do it on that page.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I was looking more big picture. I mean, you're gonna catch me because I didn't do the initial draft of this and probably call me on some things, but let me start back to where I had started from, and that is, again, we're talking about 3 different kind of uses. So we're talking about the accessory use that we just talked about, primarily for on-site and sell back to the grid. Then we have the solar farms, which is, I think everyone knows what it is. It's acres and acres of panels, 20 acre minimum in this particular case. They can be ground mounted, they can be mounted on a building. Obviously, it'd have to be a large commercial building for that to make sense from a solar energy facility, commercial. That's more the commercial component of it. And then the last one is battery storage. We've found that, environmentally, people seem to have the most concerns about this because you're storing in large batteries that are, I think that there are a number of protections that are required, not township necessarily, but, beyond township, whether it's DEP, EPA, to ensure that those don't leak. But we're also, we understand the concerns that, you don't want lots of power batteries stored, right next to you. So we have the solar farms, again, for lack of a better term, the solar energy facilities, they would be conditional uses, meaning they have to have a public hearing before the Board of Supervisors before they could be approved and allow public participation. Those would be in the LI, light industrial districts, and the office flex. Office flex, commercial, and the light industrial. And I believe that we have those same two districts proposed for the battery energy storage facilities. So again, that's big picture stuff. We have definitions, not necessarily, these may be something we come back to as we come up with an issue going forward, but nothing to cover really right there. Again, this is page 4. I'm on page 4 now, talking about the accessories. This talks about where the locations are permitted. There's a number of engineering standards or technical standards that they have to meet. We're requiring certified installers before this is done. Emergency power shutoffs, they have to be maintained. We talked again about this primarily or solely to be used on site. Talk about locating on-site utility lines to ensure that there's no problems or no impacts to those. We're not allowing people to advertise on these things. They can't rely upon adjacent properties to work. In each one of these provisions, or each one of these types of uses, we put glare prevention because you don't want to be living next to something that's reflecting the sunlight onto your, neighboring house.
So basically, your panels cannot be reflected.
Right, and that is the standard. Yeah, and we've learned that these days that these are all anti-glare panels. I don't know if it's 100% no glare, but they have been designed so that they're not, kind of flashing the sun right at the neighboring property. Emergency power shutoff, then there's some separate regulations between whether it's gonna be roof mounted or on your wall versus ground mounted. Dan Taylor had mentioned that ground mounted, concerns about having these sort of proliferate or, especially on one property, having so many of these things. We do have this building setbacks for these ground mounted, so not only do you have to meet what you have to meet for a shed, but it's an additional 10 feet beyond that to ensure that these aren't right up against property lines. We have the height, they have to meet all the other height regulations. They can't be within easements or stormwater conveyance systems, of course. And you got
Just a minute,
Yeah, sure.
ground mounted,
Yep.
I don't think it's covered anywhere, I didn't see it in here anywhere, but if I have it in my backyard, I should be required to provide screening from any adjacent residential property. I think we need to address that. You don't want your neighbors looking out their back window and seeing your solar panels.
That's addressed later in 15, but it's only for ground mounted house.
Yes, it's not for the,
Not for this, no
I
screening
think
above.
we need something similar for your regular.
We'll add some buffering to section C there for ground mounted accessory.
Yeah, and just as a addition, we talk about screening from adjacent residential dwellings. I think we need to make sure that screening from any adjacent residential property, whether it's got a dwelling on it or not, just in case somebody wants to build a house on that in the future, it's residential. They don't want to have to look at whether it's industrial type or not, they don't want to be looking at the solar panels.
And then some general stormwater management requires compliance with, with the township's ordinance. When you remove these things, you have to restore the soil, restore the area. And that's really it for the accessory. And we go on to section 4 on page 7, and this is the big boys, the solar farms. So as mentioned, they'd be permitted only in the OC district and only in the LI district. There are some common sense areas where you can't put them, such as floodways, public rights of ways, etc.
You want to put a utility right of way in there also, as well as public right of way?
it's not, I'll make a note just in case it's not covered elsewhere.
Yeah, I did not see it anywhere. I missed it.
Yeah, probably. Not the way you read them, Mr. Taylor.
Oh, come on.
Man has never seen a minutes that he didn't have one little tweak to.
There, versus there.
It has happened. It's rare, but it has happened.
All right, so, they have to meet EPA requirements, you know, kind of some standard, regulatory compliance goes without saying. I mean, you always have to comply with applicable regulations, but it doesn't hurt to put it up front and center for these developers. All right, say we want certified installers, not a bunch of hacks, 2 men and a solar panel, we don't want anything like that. Utility lines, so there are utility lines associated with this. We've run into this in real life, proposals for solar farms. The developers seem amenable to that where feasible, but there are, you know, this being Western Pennsylvania, there are areas where you just can't put underground, electrical lines, utility lines, so that's where it's, you know, we have the feasibility concept in there to allow a little bit of wiggle room so people aren't running for a variance because they have, you know, 30 feet of bedrock underneath where they're trying to put it. Then the solar array connections are above ground. The construction transportation plan, again, this really relates more to the, you know, the actual initial more impactful construction period, because when you're putting up, you know, all these things, it's a real industrial project, right? It's going to have traffic issues, not necessarily the same traffic issues that a residential development, even a large one would have, but you're gonna have construction vehicles coming in and out, so we wanna make sure that we get a plan that we can approve and review and approve. We want the applicant to collaborate with the emergency service professionals, so the fire companies, EMS, police.
Jackie, a question, is Lower Valley still provided to Indiana Township?
No.
No.
All right, that's right. I was at that meeting, so I should know better.
But I think we also have to consider, Gavin, what about mutual aid between our providers and Los Alamos? Got to need to know who they are, so in case they come, like Lower Valley, I guess maybe could come if they were mutual aid with West Gear.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, but we would want our EMS to be the primary point of contact and bring any mutual aid providers in. I think it'd be difficult to require two, I mean, in theory, you can keep expanding that and expanding that.
Either that or else we want to make sure that our emergency providers, they have mutual aid with other ones, they provide a copy to them.
Right. All right, so we're talking about emergency shut-off devices, which is applicable to all these different types of uses. Again, the no advertising component is just for the company that's actually operating the solar farm. Same concept of without reliance on adjacent properties. Noise and noise management, you know, what again we found in real life is once these things are up and running, the noise is not an issue. The complaints that I've heard anecdotally are a lot of them use pile drivers to drive these things into the ground and secure them. And that seems to be the issue that nearby residents have had the biggest issue with. Again, it's only during construction, but apparently it is an impact. It's a little tricky as to how you're gonna regulate that, because if that's the state of the art, and that's how you put them in, that's how you put them in. But we do wanna get a noise study just to get out in front of that to see if there's a way to mitigate that if possible. Let's see, the same glare concept. There's this, I don't know who Sandia is, but apparently they have a glare analysis tool that we can measure glare, and they're gonna have to meet those requirements. One of the big ones is decommissioning, and this is a concern that a lot of folks raise because, you know, like any other company, you can't guarantee that whoever's put these things in is gonna continue to be a viable company. What you don't want is, you know, 50 acres of solar panels with no one left to take care of it, to remove them. So we actually surprisingly, or to my surprise, did not get pushback from the solar developers that I've been involved with on this decommissioning requirement. So it requires the posting of a bond. That bond can get adjusted based on certain factors that are played out in here. But the key is, look, if this thing goes belly up, we want to have access to funds to get these things removed. So it's not a permanent blight on the, township.
We wouldn't have the same concern about the accessory use.
I think it's the scale of it that doesn't leave it. I think having your individual homeowner post a bond for something that's gonna be there for 20 years, I think it's pretty burdensome. And, I think that can be treated almost as any other kind of nuisance property situation. You got a shed or a barn falling down, like that. So lots of decommissioning requirements. If there's any in particular that people have question of or have feedback on, I'm happy to discuss those. But the key concept is it is a bond that our office would approve, that we would get an engineer to set a value on to be sure that it's enough, and we would continue to monitor that and adjust it as needed.
I like item J. Item J is good.
Is that the every 5 years?
Every 5 years. yes.
Right, because, these costs do, inflation or whatever whatever the factors might be. All right, then there's, some regulations specific to ground mounted. And this is, I think, is gonna be probably most of what you think of as your standard solar farm. These are the ones that sit in rows, actually affixed to the ground. We're requiring a 20-acre minimum lot size for these. They have to meet these additional setbacks, which, obviously are meant to protect neighboring property owners from having them right on top of them. Same height requirements as whatever else is in that district. They have to meet our stormwater, management requirements. This agrivoltaics on page 14, this is the, idea where you let the goats and run around on the solar farm, and they keep everything nice and, trimmed, and apparently it's a thing that's beneficial for both the goats and the farmers and also the solar developer, so,
Unless it works. It actually works.
Right. Hey, listen, I live in the south side, and we have a very overgrown public park very near to us, and every year, every summer, they bring a whole Allegheny goatscape is what they're called, and they spend the summer eating the knotweed in our park, and actually it's made a significant difference over the past 5 or 6 years. So I'm a believer in the goat management program.
What about the yoga?
And the goat yoga, they do goat yoga sometimes too. Yes, thank you. We could add that requirement if you want to participate.
Okay.
All right, one goat yoga session for Jackie a year. It's got to be that's another condition. Screening and buffering. Again, this is looking at the way we've seen this again in practice is having a view shed analysis to kind of depict, okay, if I'm driving past, what am I going to be looking at? Especially if it's neighboring properties or roadways, things like that. Are there ways to maintain existing foliage or tree cover? Can you put up some additional screening and buffering? So that's meant to address and encourage that.
And item A would be where we want to change residential structures to residential properties. If it's vacant, we don't want to have a huge person complaining about it.
So we do want to say adjacent residential properties?
Yeah, residential property.
All right. Let's see. We have, landscaping buffering, that, ties into the zoning requirements that already exist in our zoning code, in Article 6. The security, where we wanted, both Jeff and Dan Slagle had, mentioned they wanted to ensure that there was a self-closing locking gate so that, there's just not random kids or deer or whatever it is that might be running around in there. Warning signs, accessibility for 24 hours a day for emergency personnel, emergency shutoffs, really a lot of common sense security issues there. The access, you'll have your sort of primary access road from whatever public street you're tied to, but within the actual facility, they'll have some access roads to allow them to maintain. There are usually what's called a converter. I think it's called a converter, but that situated various places throughout these solar facilities. There are essentially what takes the power and then does the thing that it takes power and makes it into power. I'm not an engineer either, but these things apparently they're about the size of dishwashers and they're about as loud as dishwashers, and that's where the power's collected and then funneled out for use. We have lighting limitations to
When it
ensure.
comes to access on item A.
Yes.
You mentioned state and township roads, we would have to have county roads.
All right, county. Yeah.
And do we want to say anything about winter maintenance
would say including, but not limited to winter maintenance. All right, again, we're requiring a lighting plan to show that they're not gonna impact surrounding properties, and just general maintenance requirement. And then,
Just to go back to what you said before, in item A, you did move towards, eliminate toward, just use the word in within item A.
yes.
I had to do that.
I appreciate, listen, that's why we're here.
After your last comment.
Yes. Nope, you're right on as usual, Mr. Taylor. All right, so that gets us through your kind of, what I think the primary goal is to regulate those ground mounted. But we also want to make sure that if people, again, have a large industrial building and they want to turn that into primarily a, kind of a commercial power generating facility, we want to cover roof and wall mounted, for these larger projects. So, obviously they have to be able to support the number of panels, that's why the UCC, Uniform Construction Code reference is in there. We only allow an additional 1 foot above the maximum building height, just again to ensure that these things are, relatively consistent facade, profile wise to what's already out there in that particular zoning district. And that's really about it, because again, these are already existing buildings, or buildings that are gonna be constructed for that purpose. So, not so many of the ground mounting concerns that we would have. And then, battery energy storage systems, again, in the OC and LI district, again, some common sense, restrictions on where they can be located. I'll add, again, public or utility rights of way in that D. Get out in front of Mr. Taylor's comment on that one. And then we look at, again, standards, talking about building code standards, these, UL 1973 or 9540. Don't ask me what they mean, but they are obviously the technical standards that would be applicable to these kind of uses. Maintenance, again, common sense maintenance requirements, common sense, construction transportation plan, to ensure that, it's not impactful to the residents here. Same collaboration with, emergency service, professionals, so we're gonna eliminate Lower Valley. And creation of emergency response plan. We talk about if it's gonna be accessory to some other commercial activity, in other words, if there's a data center, for instance, they plan on powering via solar, we would wanna be advising that going in so that we know what other regulations might be in play. Again, the no advertising requirement, we don't want these things to serve as billboards. No reliance on adjacent properties, that same, noise requirement, the acoustical study to ensure, the impacts are limited.
Quick question on item 9, where it says solar access, ensure solar access, what are the battery storage facility needs solar access?
Because that is a component of these. So some of these will be solar, they will have solar arrays that will funnel to a battery on site. So this is meant to incorporate that sort of combo development as well. Again, the decommissioning, which comprises quite a bit of these regulations, same concept, to ensure that we don't end up with battery storage facilities that we're stuck with. Minimum lot size is 20 acres, same as the regular solar farm or solar energy facility. We have even larger setbacks because of the battery storage component for these ones, so 1,000 feet. We're gonna say, instead of existing occupied residential structure though, we're gonna say adjacent residential property. Property, we're on page 22, number 13. All right, same height regulation requirements. Here's some screening and buffering. Again, the idea being we don't want people, looking at these things if they don't have to, and it's got to be reasonableness component to it. But the idea, where they generally plan to put these things in most cases is, kind of out in the middle of nowhere where they're not going to impact people. But I've seen curiously that sometimes that they've chosen to put them closer to people than you would think, which brings out, of course, entire neighborhoods full of people who are against it. So it doesn't seem to be the most the smartest way to approach it. But just in case we have developers thinking like that, we want to make sure that there's enough buffering to mitigate that impact. All right, it's the lot of, again, we tie back into the buffers, walls, and fences in the zoning ordinance and the landscaping requirements in Article 6 of the zoning ordinance. And we talk about landscaping plans that have to be approved by the supervisor as part of that conditional use process. Security very much mirrors what was for the ground mounted solar farms, so not a whole lot new to cover there. We have this access, we can again reference the winter maintenance component and county roads. Thank you. Oh, I almost got in front of that one too. I could not. All right, lighting, again, similar, they have to give us a lighting plan to show it's not gonna create a nuisance, they have to maintain them. And these are also treated as land development, so again, this conditional use process is to get the zoning approval to allow the use to be there, but they will still be required to follow our subdivision requirements for the actual development of the property, so. I mean, they can run concurrently, as I'm sure you've seen, some of the projects, but they do need those sets of approvals. And then the last few sections are just, just very, kind of cleanup stuff. We would amend the use table accordingly, effective upon adoption.
Section 6 is actually duplicate of section 2. So you have to go close to this.
Is that the use table? Did I reference that twice?
Yep.
All right, well then, where would you prefer it?
Like right up front.
All right.
Smack them right away.
You got it. Section 6, be gone. Section 7 is now section 6, section 8 is now section 7. And that concludes my presentation.
So just a couple things. In the very beginning, after looking at the township zoning map as a whole, what's important for you to look at is that right now, the two zoning ordinances that it is permitted is the office flex commercial and the light industrial areas. And in order to make sure that we didn't have exclusionary zoning, Gavin had us look at where these could potentially go in those zones. And there's about, I think it's 7 or 9 sites that where it would fit in. So, I just wanna make sure that the planning commission, it's important that we're gonna limit it to just those 2 zones at this point. And there are what I consider to be ample places for it to go. If you have other ideas, let us know. And then, finally, just one more thing, if I could. Gavin, without this ordinance, what ordinances does the township currently have in place that would regulate a solar farm? And what would happen if we didn't have it?
So most likely, I believe we have a ordinance provision that talks about where there is an unidentified use or an unregulated use. I believe it's authorized as a special exception in whatever zoning district it's being requested in, but there are some criteria that the zoning hearing board has to apply to that type of use. So, we do have a sort of a fail-safe or kind of a, Hail Mary, if you will, if someone presents something that we haven't got out in front of and regulated. But it would be very difficult in those sorts of cases to place the regulations that we have here on that type of use, because until this gets on the books, we're sort of making up as we go along. So there might be some limited health, safety, and welfare requirements that the zoning hearing board could put on it, but it would not effectively mitigate the impacts like this one.
So again, what this I think does is that it doesn't prohibit solar farms. In fact, in a way, it actually encourages them. But it does define parameters and definitions as per your solicitor that I think makes it an asset to the township rather than a detriment.
I have a number of comments. When you mentioned AI, me, I think that we ought to, if there are 7 or 9 locations, we should restrict it to there. I don't mean the guy wants to screw. And just in case someone wants to do a big energy or something for AI, we should have some regulations to do.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
you're right, I think data centers should be another topic that this board addresses sooner rather than later. It's something that a lot of our communities are now working on those ordinances. There's some model ordinances that have come out of the middle of the state, and they have some really good sample regulations to get us started, so I'd like to, get some supervisor feedback on that to allow us to work on it, but I agree with you.
A couple years ago, I was in rural meetings in New York, Albany, and going to the large or the retreat we were staying at, I drove past a solar farm. I mean, first it shocked the heck out of me. I'd never seen one. So instead of growing corn, they have solar panels. And literally, that's how I think you have to look at it. But it should be restricted. It shouldn't be like, you're driving down Cyclone Boulevard, we have a solar.
That's our goal, and again, there's different people have very different takes on this, and some municipalities wanna be, more receptive and allow it in greater areas. But this is based on, we rely quite a bit on Jeff, and Dan's been out here for so long as well, and those two know the township as good as just about anybody, as good as a consultant and employee could of a township, and so I was very deferential to their ideas when it came to which zoning districts we selected.
Any other comments?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
One of the things that was said about the battery store, or that wasn't said about the battery storage, I just didn't hear it, was any additional training or support for first responders? Because batteries are pretty, flammable.
It is required, yes.
Okay,
Items.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Nothing else? We have a motion to adjourn?
I think you have old business and a letter for those that.
Mr. Chairman, I was gonna suggest, given the length of the meeting, could we take the MS4 presentation, which is just
I'm sorry.
and move that to the next meeting
Yeah, that's fine.
or a subsequent meeting? You don't mind?
Skip over it and I apologize.
I'm glad.
Our letter was sent 2 months ago to the person.
Probably no need to go over that then, huh?
No, I don't think so. Now I need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Motion by Peter, second by Preston. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mike, thank you for coming. Jackie, you want to vote, please?